Merhabalar, ismim Turgay Öngün. Microsoft Türkiye'de danışmanlık servislerinde altyapı ve güvenlik mimarı olarak çalışıyorum. Bugün bizim Cyber Security Global Practice dediğimiz bütün dünyaya hizmet veren ve güvenlik üzerine uzmanlaşmış olan ekipten bir arkadaşımız Herman'la beraber bu sunumu gerçekleştireceğiz. Herman'ın sözü devretmeden önce şundan bahsetmekte fayda var. Biz Microsoft olarak dünyanın en büyük IT altyapılarından birine sahibiz. Çok fazla kullanıcıya hakimiz. Çok fazla sayıda bilgisayar yönetiyoruz. Ve dünyada en çok fazla saldırı alan, atak alan kurumlardan biriyiz. Burada hem ticari olarak hem de müşterilere karşı güvenilirliğimizi ve itibarımızı korumak için kendimizi korumak gibi çok ciddi bir görevimiz var. Burada geliştirdiğimiz teknikleri, oluşturduğumuz çözümleri paketleyerek bütün dünyadaki kurumlara bu tekniklerden faydalanmaları için hizmet veriyoruz. Şimdi Herman devam edecek. Sunumumuz İngilizce olacak. Ancak istediğiniz zaman kesip soru sorabilirsiniz. Türkçe, İngilizce fark etmez. Ben bu konuda yardımcı olmaya çalışacağım. Teşekkür ederim. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Turgay. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time today. My Turkish is a bit rusty, so please bear with me. If something's not clear, please ask. We'll be more than happy to explain in Turkish. My colleague will translate for us. So I'm from the Cybersecurity Global Practice. We focus on advanced persistent threats, attacks against enterprise customers as well as governments. So we look at the specific ways in which the attackers specifically want to penetrate a specific customer or a specific industry. And we work together with something called the Cybercrime or the Digital Crimes Unit. And we've established a center in the United States where we do reverse engineering of malware as the Digital Crimes Unit. We work very closely with the Digital Crimes Unit as the Cybersecurity Global Practice. We do reverse malware engineering. We also do evidence gathering across the world in order to do botnet takedowns as well as malware disruption. And what the Digital Crimes Unit does is they disrupt the botnet, the command and control servers that send instructions to the zombies. And this is a big focus. It's becoming a big problem in the world. And the Digital Crimes Unit takes this very seriously. For them to take down a botnet takes a bit of legal skill, a lot of legal skill, because if there's a country or an attacker has invested themselves in a country, we need a lot of legal expertise in order to get control of that command and control server, because we want to ultimately understand what the attackers are trying to do so we can disrupt the botnet. So as Microsoft, we create something like sinkholes, watering holes, things like that in order to infiltrate and gather intelligence what the botnet is trying to do. So we work very, very closely with the Digital Crimes Unit when it comes to the intelligence. So they receive intelligence globally, billions and billions telemetry of data, which we analyze and we help improve the products that Microsoft has, as well as share the knowledge with the rest of the world through the Digital Crimes Unit telemetry. What do we see from the field? And this becomes a very, very interesting statistic. Within 48 hours, the customer domains are owned. The privileged accounts, the elevated accounts that the customer used to manage the system is compromised. The discovery or the infiltration or the vulnerability is only discovered within 5 days on average. Now what happens is, and this is not just true to Microsoft, this is for all vendors in the world, they develop a fix or there's a patch to close a specific vulnerability that the attacker wants to use as exploit. Some seats over here in front. And what the attackers do during this time frame is you get two types of attackers. The one that's proactive and the one that's reactive. The reactive attacker is the attacker that sees when a patch is released for a specific product. It could be any product. The attacker reverse engineers the fix to see what the vulnerability is in order to exploit the vulnerability before a customer gets an opportunity to actually patch that vulnerability. That's one attack vector. The second attack vector is the proactive attacker. They spend time, quite a bit of time researching how they're going to infiltrate your business. And this is where the compromise happens within 48 hours. So this is a bit more of a tactical attack or a strategic attack versus a tactical attack where attackers use reverse engineering of fixes. 70% of vulnerabilities inside of our customers are due to third party. This means that 70% of the customers' environments are not patching or updating third-party products inside of their organizations. And it's not to say third-party products are bad. Companies require those third-party products in order to run their business. But the problem is customers are so good at patching Windows, so they focus on the Microsoft platform, but they miss third-party patches as well. Some of those examples would be Adobe, Java. Those are the two biggest exploits that the attackers are after, because they can control a machine through Java through a fully patched Windows system, or through Adobe. August 2001, that is the birth date of Windows XP. And a lot of customers are still running Windows XP. They're not moving into the newer, more secure operating system platforms in order to try and mitigate the risk of an attack or a specific credential theft attack against our company or against our customers. In 2012, 55% of attacks or malware was missed or undiscovered. It's morphed malware. Malware that is not detected by updated antivirus systems, intrusion prevention, and detection systems. 55%. In 2013, there was an increase of 11% in the undiscovered malware, morphed, changed malware, that customers cannot detect. Because it's not to say the vendors do not do a good job, or the defense vendors do not do a good job at updating the signatures. The attackers are getting more clever in changing the malware that they distribute in an attack not to be detected by those systems. So we call that undetected malware. 69%. So 60% is the amount, 60% is the number where customers get notified by a third party that they are under attack. External notification. 9% of customers, so the other 9%, is customers that detect the breach themselves. So a very little number of customers actually detect the breach. 76% is due to credential theft. That is a big number. That is becoming the target, is gaining control of the system. Because once the attacker has access to privileged accounts, they have access to everything else. The identity of the system gets compromised. And 19%, that is the number that is due to corporate or government espionage, attacks against other governments. So what is the security strategy change that we see? Perimeter security, which is the traditional, I love my castle. This is the old way of doing it 300 years ago. To have a castle, good defense. But then we invented aeroplanes, parachutes, and this form of defense was not good enough anymore. There was flying missiles and all kinds of interesting things. So we have to move towards protecting a modern type of platform, a modern type of system that we run today. So we need to move from a perimeter-based security to a defense-in-depth strategy, and ultimately looking at a cyber defense-in-depth risk mitigation strategy. But also we're moving from trust everybody on the inside of the network, that includes our administrators, to assume breach. Now this is not to say you as a customer are breached. But if you assume, if you go into a conversation inside of your business, in a security conversation, everybody around the table, and you say, assume we're breached, what would we do? What is the strategy we'll put in place to make sure we are not breached? And that changes the mindset, the thought process of how we approach cybersecurity strategy. So we're moving from a traditional defense-in-depth strategy, which is what everybody follows this strategy today, to a cybersecurity strategy of identification of high-value assets. From protecting the high-value assets, how do we detect the undetectable? What is your detection strategy? Is it still effective? Can I detect the things I cannot see? How do I do this? And if I'm breached, So if you detect someone, how do you respond? What is your effective response? Do you run outside of the room and say, we've been hacked, something's wrong? Do we sit with a proper strategy? What will be step one you would do if you were to respond to a cyber attack? And a lot of customers move into the digital form. The first thing that they do is they send an email internally, and the attacker is already listening on the email systems, meaning we're telling the attacker we've detected him. So the same as what you as a business want to detect if you've been breached, the same thing the attacker wants to know if you've detected him or her. Okay? And how do you recover? A lot of cases, customers think that they can use their backups that they have, but the attacker has already compromised the backups. The attacker has already encrypted the backups. The attacker has already built a backdoor. So if you restore the attacker by default. So how do we do an effective response or incident response plan in the case of a breach? The cyber kill chain, the attacker has to reconnaissance, so he has to review the way he's going to breach the environment. He has to write his malware and weaponize it for that specific industry or business. He then needs to find a delivery mechanism for his malware and then exploit the vulnerabilities that he discovers inside of the customer. He then needs to install his malware, and then he executes a command and control server on top of the malware that he distributed in order to action or send commands to the botnet to gather the intelligence that it's told to gather, credit card numbers, personal information, etc. So it requires a command and control service. Most of our customers we see are in the reactive state, so they're asking us questions, but what do I do if I'm breached? How can I monitor it and how do I respond? Instead of building proactive defense mechanisms, detection mechanisms inside of the business and building a resilient architecture for today's modern threats against businesses. Some of the common failures we see is customers do not follow a secure development practice for software on the inside of the network. So when customers develop their own code or applications, they don't follow a framework, a secure framework. And we're not talking about code review or specific platforms. I'm talking across platforms, Java coding, if you code on Cobalt, if you code on Windows, if you code on .NET, C++, etc. I ask some customers sometimes, when you get a new developer inside of your business, do you apply or tell them to apply a security framework? Do you send them on secure code training, etc., etc.? So there's no secure baseline when they write secure software or to write secure software based on a framework to make sure that security is built into the application from the beginning. And what we're seeing is when customers don't apply a secure framework, and the security development lifecycle is Microsoft's form of a framework. We've been using it since 2004 inside of our own business for release management or to release secure applications ourselves. Customers write vulnerabilities or forget the basics of security when writing applications. They write the application for functionality. They forget about security. So we need a button to do this, we need this field to capture the following information, but they forget about the security of the information that they are capturing in the system. And that's where the vulnerabilities comes in. So they miss basic vulnerabilities, cross-site scripting, SQL injection, basic things that can be missed or mitigated by means of a secure framework. I'm sharing a source, it's microsoft.com/SIR. This is where Microsoft has got a security intelligence report. We're currently sitting at volume 17. This is available to customers to download. It's available to you as the public. So what we do in the SIR report is we gather billions and billions of data and telemetry. We put that data together in the form of a SIR report where we share certain information. Some of the key information that I want to show you is, and this is just from the SIR report, it's the Microsoft vulnerability disclosure rate versus third-party disclosure rate. So Microsoft is disclosing a steady list of disclosed vulnerabilities, things we find, things our customers find, stays pretty static when it comes to disclosure of vulnerabilities. Third-party or non-Microsoft software, there is a higher disclosure rate when it comes to vulnerabilities outside of the Microsoft platform. And the reason why we do this is to make customers aware that there is vulnerabilities, and please patch them. Take cognizance of that as part of your security strategy. Make sure that you form part of your plan to patch the non-Microsoft products as well. The next graph is to show you the undetected malware. This is inside of the Microsoft system. This is our network. Okay, this is our data. Now your question might be, how can we report on things we cannot see? So in Microsoft, if we detect anomalies, so we build a specific baseline, and if the system's behavior is abnormal, we investigate. But then we've got specific detection tools that tells us, okay, something's going on. We then investigate to see what's going on, and we then find malware in the system that our systems missed, that our detection capabilities also missed, but now we need another process. We need another process to be able to detect this. You cannot rely on a system 100%. So now that we pick this up, we engineer, we see this as malware, and that's how we classify the malware that we cannot see. So this is what we call by undetected malware. Malware that's not detected by a conventional signature system. And then lastly, on the statistics, this is the disclosures of credential theft across the world. Now, this is not a Microsoft statistic. This is an audit statistic from Forbes, etc. So in the SIR report, we do disclose the sources we get this from. Now, you're probably wondering what happened in February this year. All this is this was just, it wasn't all of a sudden there was a credential theft attack against customers. This is just a disclosure spike. So the customers could have been breached months ago. This is just when they picked up the disclosures. Hence, it looks high. We also explain that in the report. But what we're seeing is, if you look in June 2014, we're sitting almost at just under 400,000 credential theft attacks. And that's on the increase. It's on the rise. Because customers need to change the way they administer their environments to keep credentials safe. What are some of the cybersecurity solutions that we as Microsoft focus on? There's a lot more solutions, but these are the key solutions that we look on as a cybersecurity global practice. We deploy these solutions. We architect and deploy these solutions to customer environments. And we also look at the security architecture. So let's start from the beginning. Is your cybersecurity strategy aligned for today's modern threats? Is it resilient enough to effectively mitigate, not stop, because you'll always have an element of risk, to stop a cyber attack or to architect your environment differently to be resilient against the cyber attack? So we help customers design a roadmap and a security strategy by identifying the risk that you need to mitigate by means of control. So instead of aligning technology, we need to look at the risk and then apply control effectively in order to mitigate these risks. So first we need to understand what's going on in the environment. Then we look at secure platform. What would be a resilient or a secure platform that you can run in order to mitigate something like credential theft, to make sure that your administrators administer the environment securely? Let me give you an example. Credential theft happens in many ways. And if we had more time for this presentation, I was going to show you a couple of videos and things like that. What we're seeing is that the attack surface, the attack vector on a computer is memory. So the attackers are exploiting the memory in order to get credentials out of memory. There's something called pass the hash. Everybody heard of pass the hash? New concept? So pass the hash is a credential theft technique, one of many, but it's the most commonly used because the tools available is free. And the tools are freely available to harvest the credentials out of memory. Now, when you sign onto your computer, you have your password's hash that sits in memory. And you require that in order to sign on to different systems. And what the attacker tries to do is he installs malware on top of the computer. He harvests the credentials. Once he's harvested the hash of the credentials, he uses that to sign on to a domain controller where he then owns your environment. This threat is not just a Microsoft threat. You can run that threat or that risk on any authentication platform. So how do they do that? So there's a couple of tools they install to grab the credentials out of memory, but how can you mitigate that? By changing the way you administer the environment. If administrators sign on from their daily workstation that they use to administer the environment, but you still have split accounts, so you have a standard account and an administrative account, that's good practice long time ago. So it's a good practice to follow, but the moment you sign on with your administrative account onto a system, when you elevate yourself, you put those credentials in memory. And that's what the attacker grabs. Dual-factor authentication does not stop credential theft because the memory still contains the hash to sign on. You can use dual-factor authentication with the right architecture to make it more difficult for the attacker to exploit your credentials. So there's a specific architecture and design that you have to put in place to be able to mitigate credential theft effectively. And essentially what this means is you have to change your process, you have to change your policy, and you have to change your administrative practices of how you manage the identities in your environment. We discussed a little bit about secure development. We all understand secure development is very important. Then we move into how do we detect the undetectable? How can you detect yourself, as well as how can Microsoft help you detect the things you cannot see? And we've got a couple of services. There's two types of services. One is on-premise, where we basically put a black box in the customer's environment that you run and manage, but you require some skills to be able to run this. You need reverse malware engineering skills and development skills in order to find malware, identify it, and then reverse engineer it on site. So to find those skills is pretty difficult sometimes within the same customer, but we do provide that functionality to customers for them to reverse engineer and find malware themselves, things that has missed your existing systems. Then we've got an online solution as well. This online solution is where we collect the information or the dumps where malware created applications to crash, as an example, if malware caused an application to crash. And you push that into Microsoft, and Microsoft does the analysis with a discrete team, a very specialized team. Now, this is proactive customer self-detection. If a customer is not sure if they're under an attack, what can you do? How can you know if you're under attack or not? How do you know you've not been breached already? And we've got a team as part of the Persistent Adversary Detection Service team. There's a reverse malware engineer, Office engineer, a Windows engineer, and a SERA analyst, or an analyst, that comes with the team where they spend time in the customer's environment in a very secure type engagement where they hunt in the environment to see if you've been breached and if they find any malware. And if they find malware, they reverse engineer on site. And if there's issues that they find that they need further information, they reach back further into the factory of Microsoft in order to understand where the exploit is existing. So this is a specific team that spends 2 weeks in the customer site to hunt for this. Enhanced Mitigation Experience Toolkit is a tool released by Microsoft, and you're more than welcome to go and investigate this tool. You will see, and I want to say this very carefully, you will see this tool is free when you download it, but there's a catch. The management side, the enterprise management side, is not free. In order to manage this tool, it's a little bit tricky because this tool requires specific configuration to protect memory. And this tool can also protect custom written applications by you as the customer to be able to protect those applications in memory. It's not an antivirus tool, so it doesn't update with signatures, but it deploys mitigations to make it more difficult for the attacker to exploit memory. Also, this tool helps customers with a zero-day type of vulnerability. So a lot of our customers, when a patch is deployed for an application, it takes you a long time to deploy the patches. This tool helps you for that period of time to be the safety net while you perform the patch. This does not replace patch management processes. So it's worth something to investigate. I'll encourage you to please see this tool, play with this tool in your lab environment and on an independent machine, a couple of machines, see what it does and how it works for your environment. It can become aggressive. That's why it requires some configuration in order not to break certain applications in your environment. So it requires some level of testing. And then lastly, we have the incident response team. This is customers that's been attacked. You've been breached. You know you've been breached. You need to understand how bad the damage is, what's the extent of the damage, and how can you recover, if you can recover. So then we help customers with a rebuild or a recovery strategy in order to get the business online. That includes secure validation of migration, because when a system crashes and we have to rebuild, we cannot take the data from the live environment because we have to deem that compromised across into a new environment. So we have to clean up, we have to vet, we have to verify. And it can cost our customers time and money. So with that, I would like to leave you with four key security essentials to take note of. Run the latest Microsoft security updates as well as third-party update patches. So please review your patch management process and make sure that you patch third-party products as well. Align Active Directory to current threats. Make sure that you reduce the Active Directory footprint and that you change the way that you operationalize the management of Active Directory. And then lastly, implement secure software practices to the way you write your own applications inside of your organization. And with that, I see we've got 2 minutes left. I would like to, and I hope this is translated correctly. I would like to say thank you very much for your time. We've got 2 minutes left. If there's any questions that you'd like to ask. Turge, is there anything you wanted to add? Or?
Biraz önce hemen bahsettiği koruyucu, önleyici ve bir problemle karşılaştıktan sonra bunu analiz etmek ve temizlemek için gerekli olan Microsoft servisleriyle ilgili çok fazla sayıda detay paylaşma şansımız var. Ancak bu toplantı bir tanıtım toplantısı olduğu için buraya sığdırma şansımız yok. Eğer bu servisler hakkında detaylı bilgi almak istiyorsanız, kurumda Microsoft'tan çalışan hizmetli arkadaşlarla irtibata geçerseniz, bütün detaylarıyla, rapor örnekleriyle ve kullandığımız araçlarla birlikte detaylarını size aktarabiliriz. Soru varsa alalım, yoksa da teşekkür ederiz.
Birkaç araç var mıdır acaba? Bu tarz araçlar kullanıyorsunuz mesela. Şeyler kötü, malware'le geçin sen de bu tarz araçlar kullanıyorsunuz.
The types of the tools that we use to hunt and reverse engineer the malware. Can we list them?
That's MTDS, Microsoft Threat Detection Services. I'm just going to switch back to that quickly. It's this one here. That's just one of them. Microsoft has many tools. This is the one that we provide to customers. So, but this you can detect yourself, but it's not a dashboard. It doesn't use signatures, so it doesn't give you a red flash button if you've been attacked. You have to do development and intelligence. You have to review and analyze the data to find the attack. Any further questions?
I guess so.
Okay, but thank you very much for your time. We can go into further detail if you as our customers require us to go into depth into each one of these. Thank you very much for your time.
Teşekkür ederim.